Okay. So we're going to take a look at two quick exercises that kind of get us into some of what we'll need to know as it relates to bonds and their issuance. Okay. Um, so we're going to look at exercise 10-2. All right. And it gives us, so it's right here. Enviro Company issues 8% 10-year bonds with a par value of $250,000 and semi-annual interest payments. On the issue date, the annual market rate for these bonds is 10%, which implies a selling price of 87.5. All right. Prepare the journal entry to record issuance of the bonds. Assume the bonds are issued for cash on January 1st, 2017. Okay. So let's record this. Okay, so bonds are issued for cash. All right. And we're going to put a liability on the books. All right. So if you issue bonds with a par value of $250,000, that $250,000 represents the amount that Enviro Company is going to have to pay back at the end of 10 years or at the maturity date. So we're going to put that on the books as the long-term liability. All right. Okay. So from our lecture, we talked about bonds issued at a premium or a discount. Now we know these are issued at a discount. Well, it gives you the price, 87.5% of face value. All right. But even if it didn't give us that, we know that these bonds would be discounted because the bonds pay 8% interest. That's the contract rate. And then the market rate is 10%. So the only way I'm going to buy 8% bonds in a 10% market is if they are discounted. And the discount is discounted to so that my investment, whatever amount of cash I pay over the 10 years, will yield a 10% return. So that's the real value of the discount. So our computation, face amount times 0.875. All right. Actually, that's the amount of cash this bond issuance raises. So let me put that in the right spot. All right. And the plug is the discount on bonds payable. All right. So that's a plug. We'll just put the number in there that makes the entry balance. All right. So this bond issuance, even though it's a $250,000 bond issuance, only raises $218,750. All right. So that's the entry that would be made at the beginning, or I should say, when the bonds are sold initially. All right. Let's continue on and do quick study 10-3. All right. And it just tells us simply using the bond details in Quick Study 10-2, confirm that the bond's selling price is approximately correct. Use present value tables. All right. So we need to do one thing before we can do this. So we need to compute the semi-annual interest payment. All right. Well, that's face amount times, we'll call it contract, times 6/12. And we do that because semi-annual means twice a year. So each interest payment is going to be the interest incurred for half the year. So for this particular problem, face amount, $250,000 times the contract interest rate. Tempting to use the 10, don't do it. You need to use the 8. That's the contract rate, which is used in computing the semi-annual interest payment. All right. $250. All right. So our interest rate, or I should say our semi-annual interest payment, $10,000. All right. So when you buy this bond, and I'm going to set up a table here to help us because we're going to use the present value tables to price the bonds. And we're going to spend a lot of time doing this. This is something that we need to be aware of. So cash flow. So when you buy this bond, what are you buying? Well, you're buying your maturity value and you're buying your semi-annual interest payment that you'll get twice a year for 10 years. So maturity, you get the par value. All right. That's what the investor would get. And every 6 months for 10 years, you're going to get a nice check from Enviro Company for $10,000. All right. So in pricing bonds, we need to pull some values from the time value of money tables. All right. So what we have here is a future value that we need to express in terms of a present value. It's $250,000 in the future. What is it worth today? All right. So we need to take a present value. That's on table B1. Right. You may remember that from your from the previous Appendix B lecture. All right. And we also need to compute the present value of semi-annual interest payments, right, for 10 years of $10,000. And we can figure that out from table B3. All right. So when we look at our table, well, some things we need to keep in mind. The market rate's 10%, and question 3 is asking us to price the bonds to determine the market rate, what the bonds should sell for. All right, so we're going to use our 10% rate, but the bonds are semi-annual. All right. Okay, so we're going to use the market rate of interest, 10%, but the bonds are semi-annual, which means interest is paid twice a year. So we're going to divide that 10% in two, and the relevant column for us is the 5% column, and that's because the bonds are semi-annual. All the bonds we'll see in this chapter, the ones we'll be asked to price, will be semi-annual, so we want to get in the habit of doing this. Market rate of 5%, we're going to chop that in half and look at the market rate of 10%, we're going to chop that in half and look at the 5% column. All right. And since interest is paid twice a year, we're going to get 20 interest payments over the 10-year life. So there are 20 interest compounding periods here. And so our relevant factor is this 0.3769. All right. All right, and then we're going to do the same for the annuity, the $10,000 payment. Same parameters, 5%, 20 periods, and we see 12.4622. All right, so that's our factor there. All right, and so you may recall when we're computing present value, we just multiply the an amount by the factor. So no different here. Whenever my computer wants to catch up. All right. So to get the present value of the maturity value, i.e. what $250,000 in 10 years is worth today, we'll just take that amount times the factor we pulled from the table. All right. $94,225. All right. Then we'll do the same for the interest annuity. All right, $10,000 payments every 6 months for 10 years is worth $124,622. All right. And to get the price of the bonds, all we need to do is add those two numbers. All right. And we get $218,847, which is actually probably a little more accurate number than we have here, but it does fall within the range that the problem gave, within $100. That's how you price bonds, all right? And that's what we're going to be doing. Well, that's the heavy lifting that we're going to be doing in this chapter. Okay, that's all for now.